Okay, this is the description of the spin entry and recovery of the RV-4 aircraft, otherwise known as how to get yourself into a departed aircraft and recover it safely before terra firma. First off, the RV-4 stalls around 45 to 50 knots indicated clean power on. Accelerate to around 150 knots, start an easy climb, reducing power, increasing RPM pitch, richening the mixture. As the nose gets to about 25 degrees nose high to 30 degrees nose high, hold that pitch attitude until the airplane runs out of flying speed and you feel the onset of the stall. At the onset of the stall, pull the stick full aft and apply full left rudder in either direction. If you do, in fact, apply full left rudder, the nose will track quickly towards the direction of the rudder input while the stall onset takes full control of basically the lift on the wing that stalls first, which causes the wing that has the lift on it still to turn over towards the direction of the spin. Literally, the nose tracks downward at about a 45-degree angle. As it enters the spin, the first turn and a half in the spin in the RV-4, holding full aft stick, is very, very, I would say, almost lax to almost quiet and smooth, and it's almost a non-event. However, after a turn and a half, the RV-4 quickly increases the spin rate, almost doubles to almost tripling the spin rate, and you can increase that even more by putting aileron into the direction of the spin. The spin is recoverable easily by just relaxing stick pressure to neutral to slightly forward and full opposite rudder. When you do make that input, it takes about a half a turn for the aircraft to recover, and then again pull out of the dive after you see about 120 on the airspeed indicator. The airspeed recovers extremely quickly from 0 all the way up through 60 to 100, almost in, I'd say, a second and a half to 2 seconds. And then as it goes through 120, start your recovery. And then again, bring the power up, and bring your prop, in the normal position. Bring the power and manifold pressure up to match it, so that again, you don't overcool the engine. And that's this basic spin entry and recovery.
Hey, when you pull up to go into the entry, and you're 150 knots, and you pull up 25 degrees nose high, you're bringing the power up smoothly back to idle.
That's correct.
And you're bringing the prop all the way forward.
That's correct.
Okay.
And as the airplane slows down, hold the pitch attitude, and you're going to continue to hold back pressure. It's going to require more and more back pressure. And this entire thing that I just described takes less than probably 30 seconds to do the entire setup, entry, spin, and recovery.
Because it's going to start stalling around 55-ish?
50 to 55, and you start feeling it really getting strong about 50, and then the airplane, the stall is very, you'll feel a light burble, followed by a fairly strong burble on one side, requiring a full aft stick to hold it into the stall. The nose will fall through, especially with the 180 constant speed. The nose falls through. However, the rudder input is the key to getting it in a good spin entry. If you leave that stall with just starting to put pressure on the rudder, and just as the stall breaks, you stomp in that rudder, and if you were to add just a little bit of power, it would really do a more aggressive entry into the spin. However, it's not necessary. The nose will fall and track through, and as the nose tracks through about 45 degrees to about 30 to 45 degrees nose low to almost 50 degrees nose low, then the spin becomes much more rapid. And as that takes place, the airplane wraps up into more of about a 45 to 50 degrees nose down with spin rate probably about 1 to 2, I'd say 1 revolution per second, to almost 1.5 to 2 revolutions per second.
Are you putting the rudder in just as you start the stall? As it started the stall?
I put the full rudder in as the stall, as the nose starts tracking down. And you see the nose in the definite stall break with the real good strong burble. The nose starts to track down. That's when I really get that rudder in there. And I'm already leading, you always pick and choose the direction you want to go. Okay, pick the direction you want to go, and then the aft rudder, are you going full right rudder in this case? I just do relaxed stick pressure
and full right
forward
rudder
and neutral, and then full right rudder.
And it pops out pretty much.
It pops out immediately. It takes a little over a half to 3/4 of a turn for it to recover. So be ready for that.
What's the altitude that you normally like to be AGL?
I always start a spin. We're at your house today, of course, I'm above 7,000 feet. So the ground's around 2,800 feet to 3,000. So I wanted to have 4,000 feet above the ground. I want to give myself at least 2,500 feet to recover. So add 2,500 feet to your traffic pattern altitude. So at least,
right.
you know, I wanted at least 6,500 feet
and
to
then,
7,000 feet.
So, in an RV-4, I know we're legal without parachutes, only if we don't have passengers. And you would never do a spin with a passenger in the back seat.
No, not in the RV-4. I would rather not do that. It's with the 180 constant speed, it's not as huge of an issue. But again, stick interference on the recovery, you know, the weight shift, the things that go with it. With the full of fuel, you know,
it's just not worth it.
It just, to me, it's not that great of a win-win situation.
Yeah.
To do that. There's
an
no
aileron roll is a much better thing to do for
there's
passengers.
No gain from it. There's no gain from it, and I think it's better to do them by yourself.
Yeah. Now, spin-wise in an RV-4, I've never really seen a situation where I felt like I was going to get in a spin doing aerobatics. What are some situations that would get you in? Just getting real slow over the top?
The two situations where I've actually had the RV-4 basically do a one-turn spin entry that's very recoverable during aerobatics is doing vertical rolls.
Oh, great. Ladies and gentlemen, please stand by for this idiotic person who doesn't know how to operate their vehicle. I think he's trying to signal us that we need to...
Hey!
But I'm not going to...
Sing a song.
You know, it's a free country. You know, people can do anything they want. We fought for that freedom, for that dumbass to run his horn.
We could write a rap song.
I don't know, I'm not very good at that.
Horn be honking over by the street. Oh, the curb is bugging my feet. I want to go over and pull the battery cable. Inside, I'm going to grab him if I'm able. Truck be sounding like it driving down the street, honking that horn, making me want to get my feet. Go find the man that owns that truck. Grab my 2x4.
I'm going to put that on YouTube. Get my son to doctor it up. You could be famous like... yeah, like the dude that... You see the dude that was caught for... I'll tell you in a minute. So anyway, so back to welcome back to the show here.
Same bad time, same bad time. Furthermore, and in conclusion, the RV-4 spin entry is very straightforward and easily flown using standard entry and recovery procedures.
Sounds good. And anything else to add?
Well, if you're doing vertical rolls, remember before the horn,
vertical rolls.
Started.
You were doing vertical rolls?
Yeah, when you do a vertical roll, normally what I do is, again, entry speed 150 knots, bring the nose smartly up, maybe 2 to 2.5 G pull to the vertical, straight vertical. Check both sides, make sure you're in the straight vertical, and then slight unload and full aileron deflection. If you don't do the slight unload, the airplane tends to wallow and do a corkscrew roll. But if you do the nice slight unload, it will give you a beautiful first vertical roll.
You just do one roll?
Normally, I try to do 2. An RV, the rocket will do almost 2.5. But again, it's got such a heavy nose and so much power that it kind of falls off at the top. Now the X, having such a light nose, you pitch it into the vertical, it'll give you a good...
What kind of speed are you at right there? About 60? Seems like when I do a loop, I'm at 60.
The second roll begins at about 70 miles an hour.
All right.
65 knots. So the second roll, you're almost at 0 airspeed by the time it completes it, and the airplane stalls while it's rolling. Well, the RV-4, depending on speed, the RVX, the rocket, depending on speed, the nose will track one direction or the other. It never falls forward, it seems like. It always falls backwards because you have a slight tendency to have slight back pressure when a stall break happens. It's just natural.
So you could in an inverted spin?
Well, actually, no. The nose tracks through full stall while you were doing a roll, so it still has the roll centrifugal force going. So the airplane pitches over to the straight down vertical, and then the roll continues unless you recover. And now the nose being down vertical, in the straight down vertical now, you can recover very easily.
And go idle.
First, the vertical roll, through the second roll, when it stalls, you have all the inputs for spin in the straight vertical. The airplane's out of airspeed, you've got aileron input in instead of rudder input. So when the airplane stall brakes, it's so nice in the RV to have this beautiful clean stall brake, no rudder input at all, and it quickly recovers from stall. It feels like a spin entry. To change that whole scenario in the vertical roll is if you're doing a vertical roll, in the second roll, you add rudder to try and help it through that second roll. The airplane tends to yaw. Spin entry is very quickly afterwards, and then it wants to enter that spin from the vertical. So
And it's an
almost
upright spin that it goes into?
It goes right into a first turn of an upright spin. But it requires you almost have to force it to do that. And that's if you really buffoon it, step on a rudder at the second onset of the vertical roll. So it'll never happen if you've flown correctly. It should never happen.
So you got to buffoon aerobatics to put it into a spin.
Absolutely. The RV-4 has to be forced into a spin. If you took the stick in a normal stall scenario in the RV-4 and held it all the way back, and held both feet on the rudder straight with no rudder input, and just held the stick all the way back, and just held it in the stall, the nose would track up 10 degrees, stall verbal, track below the horizon 10 degrees, gain airspeed, recover from the stall, slowly track back up 10 degrees, into the stall, come back down. It'll just keep, with full aft stick, the airplane will go through a cyclic stall entry, recovery, simply by just holding the stick full aft. With a really light nose RV-4, wood prop, 160 horse, with weight in the back, i.e. baggage, like the Bandit used to be, you can get it into the stall and hold it in the burble and actually force it with full aft trim and full aft stick and a little bit of power. You can hold it in the stall and hold about an 800 to 1,000 foot a minute rate of descent with almost zero forward airspeed. It's almost, I would say, a deep stall, a forced deep stall, if you will. Holding it in, just nose slightly above the horizon, stall verbal on either wing, holding it straight with the rudders, and the airplane would literally almost fly with zero forward airspeed, slight with 1,000 foot a minute rate of descent.
If you were teaching a young RV pilot how to fly aerobatics, I mean, obviously spin, entry, and recovery is not technically required, but I'd say probably nose high, nose low recoveries, and knowing that the RV is speed up like a banshee.
I would make sure they had some aerobatic training first.
Yeah.
In a photography or something someone could go out and teach them.
Yeah.
And make sure they had some basic knowledge of aerobatics. Then you'd want to have them do basically some lazy eights in their airplane. Go out and practice with the power back. Basically set the power at maybe, at constant speed, maybe 22 squared. 125, 130 knots, just nice, easy, lazy eights to where you're up about 60 miles an hour at the top of the lazy eight, 130, 140 at the bottom, back up. Anyway, and just start off slow and work your way up.
All right.
And guess what? You're having some guests.
We have guests.